today.
And that's what's really interesting when it comes down to this, right? It's just one map that they get to choose here. They have to go through the veto system, so banning until we get down to this final map. And that's what it comes down to. It's the crunch time, right? What maps do they prefer to play? What maps do we kind of go for? Do we try to take down their best map, or do we play into our own hands? How will it work out? But we are here on Bazaar, and this is where we will be starting. And at least in terms of what we expect to see here, I'm thinking a little bit more drawn out this time around.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because we're going to end up in it here in just a few minutes. We did see these guys play somewhat recently, actually, back, what was that? I think only a few days ago, actually. These guys played back in the VRML, and the beginners did end up taking it quite dominantly in a 12-3 final score. Now, it should be noted, obviously, that was over multiple maps.
Yeah.
So we still saw them pick up a few rounds. This is only going to be one map, and it's down to only 3 points to win it, so it could be a little bit different. We've got our teams spawned out, though. Once again, Marsoc, the blue team, they're going to be on the attacking side. Purge, the orange/red team, depending on your monitor settings, are going to be on the defending side as the Volk. And the capture point is, or the uplink point is going to spawn. You can see that white dot on the minimap at the top right portion of the map there. So that's going to be where the focus point of the defense. This one's a little bit different in the way that it's played out. Normally it's a little bit more centralized, and you can have the defense grouped into one building. But because this is so close to that main street that wraps around the outside of the map, you can see they've had to branch out 1 or 2 players to watch the south lane and the lane that goes on the very north tip of the map there. They've had to have someone watch for that, because it's very easy for an attacking member of Marsoc to kind of sneak up that route and collapse on the point if they go unnoticed.
And that's what I really like that we're seeing here from Silent Purge is they've got, I think it's King of the North up at the north wall on the east side, right? He's been able to just hold this position, hold the long angle down to it, because this gives them all the information on depending on where beginners are going to try and push from. So it's very much hearing and understanding what could be going down and where they're going to be pushing from and being able to react off the back of that.
Now, you don't see anything on that tablet right there from the spectator point of view, but just to explain what's on that, there's actually a mini-map that's basically the equivalent of the mini-map, because there is no real in-game HUD for the players for the most part. You know, things like ammo counts and whatnot is not shown to the players at any time. Even the timer on the round is not immediately visible to players. They have to look at a watch on one of their wrists to see how much time is left in the round. So players have to very much keep up with their teammates, and they'll use the tablet to do that, because that will also be the only indicator as to how many teammates they have left alive, for instance, as well. So that's why you'll sometimes see players, you know, pull that out and check that. And for the defenders, it's actually pretty nice. The defenders gain a little bit of an advantage here, because they can take that tablet out, put it somewhere if they're just holding an angle, and kind of just leave it in the open and quickly glance at it every once in a while. Like you can see right here, Button's doing exactly that. He's got his tablet on the floor right there.
So a few shots being fired off regardless, just spraying it out for now. And this is more of like a defense mechanism, right? It's like trying to push them away and scare them away.
Oh, this is covering fire.
Into it. Exactly.
This is literally a covering fire tactic right here. You can see they smoke off the street, too, to possibly allow them to make a push here. So they are taking that east extremity right now, trying to push up, which is going to lead them into that one player a little bit north of them that's just across from the point. We've got the Woods brothers. You may have noticed they have very similar usernames, and there's a reason for that. They are brothers. So the Woods brothers, I believe both from the UK as well. They're going to be moving up that path together, and they'll have a third player a little bit behind them supporting.
And the problem I'm going to see here for Purge is that they can be quickly pinned down by some of the beginners players here. We see 3 of them starting to swarm around on the northeast outskirts, and there's only 1 player from Purge in that position, and him getting some defense is going to be very difficult to deal with here.
Now, Woods 43 actually just wrapped right around Don Patron. They haven't been able to spot him on the inside of the same building that IC Woods is in just yet, but that's the result. There you go. Don Patron is going to be in a great position to immediately pick off IC Woods' brother. IC Woods will try to counter it out, and he gets the job done. Quickly takes him out with the SA-80. Brings it down to a 4v4 here now. Smoils is going to pick up 1 on his own here for the beginners as well, taking down SP Gunner. And with him going down, I believe that'll put the advantage into the beginners' favor. But they do not have a whole lot of time left now. About a quarter of the time remaining here as they approach the 1-minute mark.
And now we see the rest of the Purge players all currently around.
Oh!
Put down, and a team attack's never going to be ideal to start off with here.
King of the North accidentally knocking off Button there, as I believe he might have tried to fall back but didn't communicate it to his teammate, so panic shot came out. Too old to game in the meanwhile, tries to make a run on Smoils, but he catches it. Here's the footsteps running off at him from a mile away, so Smoils will find the counter there. The beginners will move in, and with the last player from Silent Purge getting knocked out, the beginners will take the opening round on eliminations, putting them up 1-0.
eliminations across the board. And we speak about the communication within Onward, and that's what it comes down to, right? Allowing that team attack to happen. Normally, it wouldn't be such a thing where you maybe hit them once and you go, oh, okay, not too bad. But it is so realistic when it comes down to it that it's very easy to just get a little bit carried away with it. And that's the difference, right, when you're comparing this to maybe the normal games, right, the non-VR games, where you're like, oh, you can see it on the mini-map all the time. If you can't grab yourself out your tablet and have a look, you will just take them shots, you will just fire into it. So a little bit unfortunate from them. A nice style of play coming out from Purge, and I like the positions they took early on, but beginners just took it to them.
Yeah, very much the case. We talked about how strategy, I think, was going to be a large part in deciding who ended up taking the victory on these rounds, and ultimately beginners just came to the table with a little bit of a better strat that time. Purge had themselves a good lineup of players. They had a good defensive setup overall, and we even saw Don Patron, catching the main push over on his side a little bit earlier on in the round. I don't think he realized how many players were involved in that, though, and ended up going down in the trade there, and then either wasn't able to communicate just how many players were involved in that, either that or misjudged it. And as a result, we just saw them slowly get collapsed upon on the east and west sides of the map and couldn't hold those angles, unfortunately.
And this is the difference, right? You guys looking at the score at the moment, it's just 1-0. In our previous game, it was because they got the uplink, which gives you 2 points to play off the back of there. It means you can kind of win it out pretty quickly. But this time around, it's going to swap around and still not be kind of defined in being 100% an easy win for anyone.
Still going to be the same uplink point over here on the northeast side of the map. And a pretty similar defensive setup coming out here for the beginners, too. A slight difference, though, is that beginners, instead of sending one player far up to the north alleyway, they've actually kept him with their second player that's defending the east cluster of buildings, and they're going to be holding them together. So I think there's a better chance for a trade if one of them has some bad luck on the initial duel that he takes.
Yeah, that was about to say, right, because the position that we saw before for Purge, when they had that exact hold, they only had one player there, which meant no refrag potential. He got swarmed very quickly and taken out. This time around, beginners are looking to capitalize. If there is any action that goes off the back of it, we can all engage if needed to try and take this position and try and fight back against Purge pushing in.
Friends, I can hear you.
Oh, a little bit of banter there from Smoils. Like we talked about before, players can hear each other, and more importantly, we can hear them in game, which makes for some fun moments like that. He does unfortunately throw a little bit of a misnumbered nade there. Tries, I think, just to get the flash out into the open, but don't believe it connected. So he's going to hold back in that little hallway for now.
And he's giving them the warning, right? He's like, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
I can hear you guys. Like, come on, bring it to me.
We don't have that happen as often as you'd think. Players taunting each other and things like that. Definitely does happen, but...
Hey, I'm getting all the good stuff to start things off with here.
So it's interesting to see some players having a little bit of fun here. Don Patron specifically going to be moving up. And I was talking about the Morse code before. I don't know if you heard it, but I think he did just do a slight little radio click there. Now, enemies can hear those too. So that can also be somewhat revealing if someone's really paying attention with their ears. But obviously, it's going to be a little bit harder to hear than someone actually talking in close range.
And that's it, right? That's where some of them opt to just not do the communication. That's the difference between the top-level teams and some of the teams that are just finding their feet with it. Things you have to learn when starting to play Onward.
It's safe to come here.
Just Smiles passing on that communication to his teammates, saying that, okay, at the moment, at least things are clear. At least it's safe for now.
And Purge, unfortunately, has not been able to make a whole lot of progress with their positioning just yet. But there's kind of a reason for this, and it's on Don himself here, because we can see he's way up on the northwest side right now, trying to go for a pretty massive flank. Now, someone might have actually just seen him, because beginners are rotating a player all the way into the north alley, too. And Smoils, he's going to be able to move up. It seems like it might just been pre-fire at this point, but he's getting dangerously close to Too Old to Game, who's just on the outside of the same building. And he's positioned on the inside of it. He's trying to watch the little break between the two buildings right now. See if he can catch anyone through that small crevice. But at the moment, it's not looking like it's going to line anything up. Smoils is staying in a safe position. Too Old the Game, just going for a little bit of pre-fire there. I think he heard some footsteps coming up.
He looks for that pixel-perfect shot if he's going to try and make it through there, but it can also give him the information to see where they're running around. We've now seen actually one of the players still, for beginners, hold up on that north wall. And they just want to be careful of this. It's like, okay, time's ticking away. We haven't seen too much from them. Now the action starts to unfold, at least with the smokes and grenades coming out, trying to flush some of the beginners' players into position. And Don Patron is going to be the one that's trying to push forward and be the real point man.
And he is going to move up. He's going to be able to take down at least one, but it's a quick trade that moves in from Icy Woods at the same time. It looks like they actually take each other down. One's going to be downed, however. The other one will be fully knocked out. So there's a chance for him to get revived. But with this little time left, it's unlikely that we see that happen. Too old to game, trying to make his push forward. Him and Button end up with great positioning here. Dr. Killinger, though, is going to make a push. She manages to take down Too old to game, keeps himself in the fight. It's just him and one other teammate against what I believe is still 4 still standing here for Purge at this point. They obviously have a much stronger input into this round at the moment.
Oh, that's nice.
And there we go. A revive will bring another player from the beginners back into the fold, so they're up to 3 now.
What a brilliant push coming out from Purge. They're nearly getting a double kill at one point when they're starting to rush into them, but Beginner's still standing strong for now. Getting that revive is absolutely huge in terms of trying to hold off the rest of this push coming in, but they are completely pinned down and they can't really move out of their positions. Right? They're not going to be able to change it up too much here, which gives Purge a lot of information to say, okay, look, we can see what's going on. That's going to be a nice one for Button. He's going to get on to Dr. Killinger. How much more can he get? Button's trying to work his way through. He saw where that player was, but couldn't manage to get it done, and Beginners are looking to try and hold it off.
Another team kill ended up moving itself in there, though Smoil was accidentally picking off Kev when they were trying to deal with, I believe it was Killinger. So Smoils will move in, just double tapping onto a player. Didn't know if he had downed them or got the confirmed kill just yet. Another pre-fire down the alleyway. I think he heard the footsteps of another one of his opponents in the pass right there, but he'll end up walking right. No, he runs right past him. King of the North will take him out, and with that, Purge is going to take round number 2, tying us up at 1-1.
And a 1-1 off pure eliminations for these teams. And you got to say, right, it was looking a little bit scary for Purge because they're having to take such a slow push going into it. Then those little battles happen. But once again, a team kill a little bit more frantic when it comes down into it. And this time on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Team kills are actually going to happen quite a bit in these matches just because of how flank-heavy this map tends to be. So you end up with a lot of mispositioned players or players that kind of change their spot without having the time to communicate it, which I think is how the first team kill happened. Someone tried to rotate back and they didn't call it out, so they ended up just surprising a teammate, and an unfortunate circumstance happened there. This time it was more in the heat of the action. Someone ended up spraying into someone they probably thought was an enemy, so it was a little bit more blatant that time. But obviously, again, no team markers above players' heads or anything like that. You only have the uniforms to identify your teammates by, and they are quite distinct. The Volt wearing a full black outfit, and the Marsoc just in your standard, military briefs and whatnot there. So besides that, you don't really have a whole lot to tell these teams apart, and that is why we often see a whole lot more team kills in Onward compared to some other games out there.
Yeah, and that's what the real difference is, right? When it comes to actually looking at Virtual Rally and how this goes down, you get that feeling of the real adrenaline rush. You watch some of the players when they're playing at the LAN events and stuff like that, and you see them sweating it out, right? They're really starting to take kind of a bit of the hurt from the game itself outside of the game.
Yeah. So we get into it now. Obviously, like we said before, a bit of a closer affair this time with both teams trading blows on their attacking side. But now, the uplink will also, this is the first time we'll see this here on the stream. It's gone from the northeast part of the map down to way in the south. And this is the one where Purge are going to be able to centralize their defense a little bit more, as you can already see. But more importantly, look at how quickly the beginners are moving into position in comparison to Purge in the last round here. They're already at the main southern street trying to cross it and trying to get up in the faces of Purge here, in addition to having that flank moving itself in from the west side. In fact, we've already got 2 additional kills coming in now for the beginners. Button and SP Gamer have been knocked out. However, check out King of the North on his own flank coming in from the west side. Him and Don Patron are going to be able to trade those 2 kills right back, trying to keep Purge in the match here.
Too old to game found himself one as well, but another team kill comes in. At least with the down, it's not looking good once again. And Purge won, they get an extra point up on the board, and it's eliminations all round. Beginners going hot and heavy with that one, right? They rushed straight into it, and actually it didn't benefit them. We see that slow style of play kind of coming out of it now. Yeah,
very much the case. Some nice, nice on-the-fly adjustment that we ended up seeing from Silent Purge there to send, I believe, was Don Patron way over towards the west side and have him kind of flank in. That really threw off the attack. Because up until that point, it seemed like it was going to be a pretty clean push overall for the beginners and just swiftly take control. Maybe even be able to sneak off an uplink and just outright win the map on that, as they're already at 1 point here. But ultimately, that nice flank, in addition to the quick adjustments and the nice hold that we had from Purge on the site itself, allowed them to hold on and just barely fend off that rush push. Again, something that we don't see too often, such a fast play like that. So I don't know if that's the new format or the guys from beginners just want to give us a little bit of a show there, but definitely already much different play styles coming out with this new format here.
And I think what this is going to do is going to say to at least beginners that, okay, we need to give Purge a little bit more respect now, because they rushed in, all guns blazing, thought that we'd be able to take it, get these early kills in, but they weren't having any of it. They're saying, all right, we can put up a defense there. We can stand strong. And now they're in the lead, 1 point away from potentially winning the whole thing.
Yeah, now to be fair, this is one of Purge's best maps, actually. It's their second best map in the entire pool. The only one better than this being Quarantine, obviously a much bigger map. But it's still very impressive that they're holding their own against the beginners, considering how divisive the scoreline was between these two, even just a few days ago. It was about a week ago or so when they played in the other league in the VRML.
You can see straight away from beginners. Get themselves set up quite nicely here. Wait to see what's going on. Purge aren't going to take that fast-paced approach. And rightly so, right? They've got to give the mutual respect back to beginners, knowing how good this team can be.
There was going to take things slightly slower. Still moving, very quickly, at least by Onward's pacing, though. Like, already crossing this major street. On the old format, we wouldn't see this happen until we were at, like, 3-4 minutes on the clock. So maybe even less than that. So this is already a little bit of a different play style being executed by both of our teams in adjustment to the new format. Already crossing 3 players on the main southern street here. The problem now, though, is they've got to go through 2 other choke points. This small street here, which thankfully for them, no one from the beginners has taken a position on this side, so it's going to be a relatively easy push. But with the way they're sending a lot more players down to the far south, they're going to have to worry about crossing the other main street there as well. So it's going to come down to how they're able to successfully work their way across. They've got another player in the actual bazaar in the center of the map, too, that is holding right now, probably with DMR or a longer range scope, to try and spot out anyone who might get a little bit aggressive on the beginner side and try to pick them off in the street.
You heard them communicating just before we switched over to look at some of the Purge players. And it is looking at some of these angles, right? There can be some true long-distance fights out in the open. So Purge have made their way across this far. But interestingly enough, they've got a player currently on the North Street just looking to try a different play up the flank, right? Try and come around from the side, because there's a lot of control all the way down at the south so far for Purge, and they don't have the information for the rest of the map just yet.
So still 2 ults a game holding this main extremity on the big street. Trying to see if he can catch anyone from beginners, but they're pulling in their very passive lineup with 4 or 5 players all sitting in that singular compound. We've got Kev, the lone player that's stretched out a little bit more towards the east, but he's also watching this main street. So if someone walks up on him from behind, he's more than likely not going to expect it. He's got to rely on...
Oh, that's interesting as well. So calling out the blind spot to make sure, okay guys, be aware that this could be going down as well. And that's really important when it comes to the communication, because yes, you can see how chaotic it does get. We've just seen it in the last couple of rounds. Nade goes out. It does come out a little bit towards the Purge players, but it's not going to do any damage. Then be alright for now, but it's more of like the warning nade, right? Okay, guys, look, we got an idea of where you might be. We're kind of clearing corners as well ourselves, and it already starts off for Icy Woods. Comes in with his first opening kill. They're looking for more. Smoils has popped out as well, and Beginner's starting to take some serious control. 5 still alive for them, and 2 players from Purge have hit the deck.
These are the flanks that were caught, too. The attempt to push the southern extremity along with trying to sneak up on them from the eastern compound here. Both have been caught so far, so this is already a massive upset against Purge's favor. They were relying on this. They were hoping they could sneak up on their enemies with this type of a push. And it so far hasn't worked. Button's going to try his luck, trying to peek out where his teammate just fell a few seconds ago here. Smoils still has a hard hold on that angle, though. Gunner is trying his best to find some way to play this from the west side, too. But again, nothing really lining up for him right now. They're having to try and come up with something relatively quickly. We've got smokes out on the board here, too. But they've only got a minute left. Button finally able to pick at least 1 kill up here from Purge. That is Smoils that goes down. That was the primary player holding the main street and trying to stop them from pushing the east side of it. Button, though, is going to walk right in. Chucks an aid. Did Kev even see it? Nope.
No, not at all. That was huge. Kev goes down. There's still a bit of a battle going on, though, for the Purge players. 1 player has been down, but it's still only 2 for beginners. Purge are truly battling back, and they want to end this right here and now. Button playing it ever so smart, still waiting it off at the moment. Needs to work on the communication with his teammate. And if they can get the revive in, that could solidify the potential chance for them to take this. But Dr. Killinger comes in, but it's a 1-for-1. Button's coming up, we'll finish him off straight away. So now it's just 1 versus 1. They have got the potential. Icy Woods pushing into it, and that confidence coming out there, absolutely perfection.
So IC Woods brings it back at the last moment there. It comes all the way down into a 1 versus 1. Trades going all over the place. Good adjustments from both teams, really. Basically came down to a single aim duel at the end of the day right there, which for IC Woods, he was able to take, and that keeps the beginners in this map. Prevents the upset so far, but still takes us now to a fully loaded series. We're going to go to round 5 to decide it. No uplink caps, have happened here just yet either, meaning regardless of the outcome, the next team to win a round here is going to win the map and the match.
Oh, yes, and I'm saying, right, you got to give Purge ultimate respect for that. The whole way through, they were having some good control there. Beginners started off again with the opening kills, and they're like, okay, look, we can try and clean this up nice and easy. It doesn't work out that way. They are not holding back, and they are not giving up. It's just unrelenting action from both these teams, to be fair.
Yeah, very much. It's been incredibly close, and really you got to give credit for Purge to being able to keep up with this. Like we said before, they're a team that's kind of sat a little bit lower in some of the other leagues' ratings, a little bit out of that top 3 where we kind of have the golden gooses of the region. So this is really impressive stuff from Purge that they've not only been able to keep up, but really threaten the beginners and almost take it from them in 3-1 fashion if they were able to come out on top of that last aim duel right there.
So now we go back this time to the center market. So we're going to see the uplink put down. Having a bit of a 2-2 split with one player at least for beginners just holding on. Sat around the courtyard area. I like this from beginners. You're taking full control of both sides, right? And you're going to try and pincer the rest of Purge in. And also, you're just flushing out, making sure there are no potential flanks coming in. They've got one team of 2 going up onto the northwest outskirts, and then on the northeast outskirts, at the moment currently on the southeast, they're just going to be working their way up, and they're going to truly just take full control of all the sides here, which just leaves them to focus on the market.
This is going to be a lot more difficult for the beginners. This is one of the hardest uplink points to get control of just because of how much surrounds that capture point. It's hard to approach from the south because it's wide open. It's hard to push in from any of the sides with buildings around it just because someone's more likely going to be hiding in a corner and you're not going to be able to catch them. It's very hard, like pre-firing is a one-shot attempt basically in this game. If you walk into a room blind and you don't have intel in terms of what's happening in that room, you fire at the wrong corner and you're dead because of how low the TTK is. So it becomes a very, very hard uplink point to actually get close to, let alone win the round on it.
And that's what you don't want to see, right? None of these guys are going to just walk across the street and say, all right, we're out in the open, because it's just not worth the risk here, especially with the setup that Purge have got. As we look at the map in a little bit more detail, you can see exactly how they're trying to play it out here, but that's a good start for beginners. King of the North, he goes down instantly there, no chance of a revive. And I see we're looking at 7 kills and 2 deaths. He has been the true fragger for beginners so far.
Some nice holds from him. Him and his brother look to come out on top here. You can actually hear Kev breathing.
Yeah. This is what I mean, right? When the game starts to draw out a little bit more, it becomes harder for these players to keep themselves going. That cardio does come into full effect.
Yeah. Trying to keep the calisthenics going and all that as he does a bit of an exercise and peeking real quick.
There's one close to me, right side.
So Gunner's been able to spot one. I believe that would be Smoils. Yeah. He was slowly approaching the market here. And more than likely, he's going to have to hold here. It's going to be really dangerous for him to push in any further than this, just because the cover isn't absolutely guaranteed. You can see there's some small slits between the wood barriers, and those, I believe, can have bullets penetrate through them. So taking any position forward from this point is going to be really dangerous from him.
Need to go clear.
He's going to try to chuck a nade out there. Meanwhile, more comms from Dr. Killinger as they try to readjust their positioning a little bit. The nade was a smoke, so it does start to cover off some of the territory. Smokes last a decent amount of time in this game. And not only that, but this is another really unique piece about Onward, is that the nades, including smokes, can actually be picked up and thrown again after they've already been deployed. But got them moving in now. Woods is going to find a nice opening pickup here against 2-0 the game. Takes him out of the fold. The rest of the team going to start to move themselves forward here in a second as well. We've got Purge down to just 3 players left. And the beginners, still, all 5 of them left alive here, but they are on the attack. Meaning the 2 they've picked off were more players that were trying to hold flanks on the extremities. Yeah. They could still be wiped when they get close to the actual uplink, just because of how close quarters that tends to be. It's going to open up a room for a lot of mistakes to be made and just not checking appropriate players.
See the uses of utility coming in there. They want to make sure they're flushing any players out. Like you said, you don't want to go into these rooms blind. You need to have an idea of what's going on, because if you do, you make the wrong decision on which way to turn, you're definitely going to have your days numbered. So Button, he can hear what's going on. He needs to make a decision on how he wants to approach this. Woods could be a play he sees next, as we see smoke go down, which is going to provide the cover. It's going to give information to Button, but he can't challenge it just yet.
Yeah, but unfortunately, smokes are very all-covering as well in this game, so it's going to be very hard to actually catch any intel through them. It does look like this one's slightly imperfect, though. It looks like he's got a small amount that he can still spot on the right side. He misses Dr. Killinger up on top. Oh, but the adjustment back just in the nick of time to catch Woods 43. Smoils will trade it back. Button is going to be able to at least knock down Dr. Killinger, and Kev will trade that back against Gunner, meaning the beginners ultimately will pick up the final round, taking control at 3-2 at the end of another very, very chaotic end-of-round gunfight, taking the map just barely, but indeed coming out on top of this match.